Mother's Day. The one day out of the year where I let myself imagine just for a moment that I might be seen. Not as the cook, not as the chauffeur, not as the family's invisible backbone, but as a mother, a woman worthy of gratitude. The dining room was warm with the smell of roasted chicken and buttered rolls, the kind of meal I used to spend hours preparing. But this time, my daughter-in-law had catered from her favorite bistro. "So you can relax," she said, all smiles, though her tone carried that slight edge, like she was reminding me my services were no longer needed. I swallowed it down with a tight smile and folded my hands in my lap. The kids, grown adults now with partners, mortgages, even children of their own, sat laughing, clinking glasses, scrolling their phones. I tried to catch their eyes, but I was background noise in my own celebration. Then my son cleared his throat. "Mom," he said, grinning. "We all chipped in and got you something." A gift bag appeared, pink tissue paper puffing out of the top. It was passed down the table like a sacred offering. My hands trembled as I reached for it, my chest swelling with foolish hope. Maybe jewelry, maybe a framed photo of all of us together. Something, anything that said "we see you." I pulled the tissue aside and froze. Inside was a neon yellow pair of rubber gloves, a bottle of lemon-scented all-purpose cleaner, a novelty dish towel with the words, "If you want breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen." The laughter erupted before I could even process it. My daughter-in-law clapped her hands like it was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. My son smirked. Even my daughters chuckled, though one had the decency to look at me and quickly look away. The sound felt like glass shattering in my ears. I forced a smile. My hands clutched the towel, my knuckles whitening. "Oh," I said. My voice came out too soft, too thin. "Thank you." My husband, watching from his spot at the head of the table, shrugged. "Come on, honey," he said. "It's just a joke." Just a joke. That phrase had followed me for years, like a shadow. I sat there trembling, my chest tight, as laughter died down and the conversation moved on as if I wasn't there. I wanted to disappear into the chair. Instead, my mind spun backward, to all the times I'd ignored the sting of those words. Just a joke when he forgot my birthday. Just a joke when my son teased me in front of his friends for packing 2 healthy lunches. Just a joke when my daughters rolled their eyes at the clothes I wore. The things I cooked, the way I laughed too loudly. I had always smiled, swallowed, endured. And now, on Mother's Day of all days, the joke had been wrapped in pink tissue paper and placed directly in my lap. I remember my first Mother's Day, decades ago. I was 25, exhausted, with dark circles under my eyes from nursing at all hours. My husband brought me a single rose from the grocery store. I cried from gratitude back then. Even that rose felt like acknowledgement, like someone had seen how hard I was trying. I used to believe it would get better, that as the kids grew, as I gave more, they'd learn to notice. To respect, to love. But respect has a way of eroding when it isn't protected. I see that now. "Lighten up," my husband chuckled, pouring himself more wine. "They're saying you're the queen of cleaning, right? You're the best at it." "That's the point, queen." I nearly laughed at the word. A queen rules. A queen commands respect. What they handed me was a crown of rubber gloves, a throne made of dirty dishes. I kept my eyes on the tablecloth, tracing the embroidered flowers with my fingertip. My throat burned, but I said nothing. My daughter-in-law leaned over, her perfume sharp, her smile even sharper. "Don't be upset," she whispered. "It's funny. You're so sensitive sometimes. Sensitive." Another word that had been weaponized against me my whole life. Sensitive meant weak. Sensitive meant I should learn to take the punchline. I pressed my lips together and nodded, but inside, I was collapsing. The food tasted like sawdust that night. I laughed at their jokes when expected, refilled water glasses out of habit, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying the moment I pulled those rubber gloves out of the bag. The way they all watched my reaction, the way they all laughed. It wasn't just the gift. It was the memory of every overlooked holiday before it. The Christmas when I stayed up until 3 a.m., wrapping gifts for everyone, only to find nothing under the tree for me. The Thanksgiving where I cooked for 20, but when the prayer was said, no one mentioned my name. The birthdays where the cake was store-bought, the candles barely lit. The family too distracted to sing in unison. It was a lifetime of being background noise. And that night, sitting in a room full of people who carried my blood, I realized I was invisible to them. Not invisible as in unseen, but invisible as in disregarded, expected, taken for granted. The rubber gloves were just the punchline. The truth was the joke had always been on me. After dinner, when the dishes were cleared, I slipped away to the bathroom. I locked the door, pressed my palms against the cool counter, and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who had once believed a grocery store rose was enough. Her eyes were older, heavier, tired of swallowing. I thought of every meal I'd cooked, every scraped knee I'd kissed, every job I worked while my body ached just so the kids could have shoes that fit, schools that cost too much, dreams bigger than mine ever were, and for what? For laughter, for a gift bag filled with rubber gloves and lemon cleaner. My chest trembled. My breath hitched. I wanted to scream, to smash the towel into the trash, to march out and demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. I walked back to the table, sat down, and folded the towel neatly on my lap. My husband raised an eyebrow. "See? You're fine," he muttered. Fine, I let them think it. I let them believe I was fine. But inside, something was breaking loose, something stronger than tears. A voice I hadn't heard in years whispered, "Remember this. Keep the receipt. They will not laugh forever." And so I smiled, I nodded, I played the part. But in that moment, as the laughter swirled around me and the lemon cleaner gleamed in the bag at my feet, I made a silent promise to myself. The next time they tried to turn me into a joke, I wouldn't tremble. I would rise. After the laughter of Mother's Day faded into silence, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. My body was tired, but my mind kept circling the same thought. How did they forget? How could the very people I carried, fed, and fought for reduce me to a joke wrapped in tissue paper? It wasn't just about rubber gloves. No, this was about years, decades of my life given over in silence. I began to tally it, as though some invisible ledger had been waiting all along. The first entry: time. The nights I paced with colicky babies while my husband snored undisturbed. Hours spent sewing Halloween costumes by hand because store-bought felt too cheap. Days that blurred into weeks where I lived on coffee and leftovers while the kids had fresh fruit, new notebooks, packed lunches with little notes inside. I gave them my time, the one currency you can never earn back. The second entry: money. Quiet, secret money that came from me cutting corners on myself. I wore the same black flats until the soles peeled back like tongues, so my son could have name-brand cleats for soccer. I skipped dentist appointments so my daughters could get braces. Once, when tuition came due and we were short, I pawned my grandmother's gold bracelet. My wrist felt naked for years. But when I saw my daughter walking across campus in her cap and gown, I told myself it was worth it. But now, I wonder, was it worth being forgotten? I remember the night I came home from working a double shift at the diner. My feet ached so badly I had to peel my stockings off in the dark living room. My son, 16 then, barely looked up from his phone when I asked him to set the table. "God, Mom, you're so overbearing," he snapped, rolling his eyes as though I were nothing more than a nagging shadow. I laughed it off, told myself it was teenage hormones. But the word lodged deep: overbearing. Years later, I heard my daughter echo it. She was 20, home from college, bragging to her friends about independence. I offered a suggestion. Don't forget a warm coat, winters are brutal up north, and she rolled her eyes too. "You're smothering, Mom." Chill. Smothering. Overbearing. Sensitive. Words that rewrote my sacrifices into flaws. And my husband? Always the peacemaker, but never my defender. When the kids mocked me, he shrugged. "They're young. Don't take it to heart." When they ignored me at family dinners, he filled the silence with jokes. He chose their comfort over my dignity every single time. The ledger grew heavier in my mind. Not just the big sacrifices, but the tiny, constant ones. The way I always took the smaller piece of meat so everyone else could have more. The way I stayed awake until I heard their car doors slam at night, heart thudding with fear until I knew they were safe. The way I remembered birthdays, anniversaries, allergies, and favorite colors, carrying everyone's needs like a second spine. But who remembered mine? They don't see you, she said quietly. They see what you do for them, and when you stop doing, you'll see how quickly they forget. Her words stung because they were true. I brushed them off at the time, called her cynical. But sitting there on Mother's Day night, clutching that dish towel like a flag of surrender, her warning echoed louder than the laughter had. They didn't see me. They saw my service, my sacrifices, my silence. I once believed invisibility was noble, that a good mother dissolved into the background, content to watch her children shine. I thought self-erasure was the price of love. But the cruel gift bag showed me the truth. They weren't honoring my sacrifices. They were mocking them. They had taken my giving and twisted it into expectation, into entertainment, into a punchline. And I let them. That realization settled over me like fire in my veins. I was not trembling anymore. I was simmering. I went to the closet and pulled out an old shoebox. Inside were scraps of my life, receipts from school fees, yellowing photographs of birthday parties I planned, a pawn slip from the jewelry store where my bracelet still sat unredeemed. Each piece whispered, "You gave, you gave, you gave." I thought of the hours, the money, the body I sacrificed, the way my back aches now when I bend, the way my hands stiffen in the cold. Reminders that I spent my health on others' comfort. And in return? Rubber gloves, lemon cleaner, laughter. By dawn, I knew the truth I had been avoiding for years. I was not the family's queen, not even their matriarch. I was the servant, the maid. The convenient punching bag, and that Mother's Day gift bag wasn't an accident. It was the truest reflection of what they thought I was worth. The thought burned. But it also cleared the fog I'd been living in. I looked in the mirror and whispered aloud, "Never again." Because somewhere deep inside me, beneath the exhaustion and the silence, a spark was catching flame. I think back to a text I stumbled across once, on my daughter-in-law's phone when she left it charging on the counter. A family group chat. My son had written, "Mom's being dramatic again." A string of laughing emojis followed. Someone added, "She lives to play the victim." I stood there frozen, my chest hollowing out, reading their digital laughter. They mocked me even when I wasn't in the room. I didn't confront them. Instead, I tucked the phone back and forced myself to smile when they walked in. But inside I cracked. That was the moment I realized my love was a costume they had grown tired of. One afternoon, my oldest friend Lydia saw through me. We were sipping tea in her kitchen, the scent of chamomile filling the air. She leaned across the table, eyes sharp. I waited. I didn't storm out on Mother's Day. I didn't slam the bag into the trash or cry at the table. I let them think I was small, that I was swallowing it yet again. But inside, the ledger of my sacrifices had turned into something else, a weapon. A week later, I called them all together. Sunday dinner at my house, just like old times. My children came reluctantly, their spouses tagging along, their phones buzzing in their hands. My husband sat at the end of the table, ready with his usual jokes to smooth over tension. They didn't know this wasn't a meal. This was a trial. I placed the shoebox on the table, the same one where I had kept my receipts, my scraps of evidence. My hands didn't tremble this time. "Before we eat," I said, my voice calm, "I have something to say." My son groaned. "Mom, no," I cut him off. My voice surprised even me. Steady, clear. "You're going to listen." The room quieted. I opened the box and pulled out the first slip of paper, the pawn ticket for my bracelet. "Do you remember when tuition came due and we didn't have enough? I sold the only heirloom I had left from my grandmother. I told you not to worry, that everything was covered. You walked across that graduation stage because of this. I slapped the paper down. Not because of magic. Because of me. My son shifted in his chair, cheeks coloring. I never asked you to— Exactly, I said. You never asked. Because you never had to. I gave before you could even form the words. I pulled out a pair of worn black flats, soles peeling. I wore these for 7 years. While you had cleats, new shoes every season, I walked to work in these, so you wouldn't feel poor, so you wouldn't feel less. My daughter-in-law snorted, trying to lighten the mood. Come on, this is dramatic. We were just joking with the gift bag. I turned to her, eyes sharp. A joke is only funny when everyone laughs. Did you see me laugh? Did you see me smile when you handed me rubber gloves like I was the family maid? Her mouth snapped shut. I laid out more. Photos of birthday parties I planned alone. Receipts from endless grocery runs. Notes scribbled during overnight shifts. My ledger filled the table until their plates were crowded with proof. You called me overbearing, smothering, sensitive. My voice rose. But every insult was built on the back of my sacrifices. You mocked the very hands that held you. My husband cleared his throat, trying to intervene. Honey, this isn't fair. No, I said firmly, locking eyes with him. What's unfair is that you watched. You watched as they disrespected me, laughed at me, erased me, and you chose silence. You chose peace over me. He looked down, shame flickering across his face. My daughter shifted uncomfortably. My son rubbed his temples. The daughter-in-law tried another laugh, weaker this time. We didn't mean harm. It was contempt, I snapped. Don't dress it up. That gift bag told me exactly what I am to you. Not a mother. Not a woman. A cleaner. A servant. A punchline, silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I stood, pushing the shoebox aside. But let me be very clear, I am done. Done begging for respect. Done being invisible. Done letting my love be twisted into a joke. My son muttered. So what? You're just going to cut us off? I looked at him, my child, my flesh, and for the first time I didn't feel fear in saying no. I'm going to start living like my worth isn't negotiable. Whether you're part of that life is up to you, but I will never again accept laughter where gratitude should be. My husband reached for my hand. Don't do this. I pulled away. I already did. The room buzzed with discomfort. My daughters whispered to each other. My daughter-in-law finally looked away, her smirk gone. My son stared at the pile of evidence, jaw tight. I gathered the rubber gloves and the lemon cleaner from the bag I had saved, placing them at the center of the table like an exhibit. You thought this would make me small, I said softly. But it made me see, and once you see, you can't go back. No one spoke. The silence was the truest acknowledgement I'd ever been given. I walked out of the dining room, not waiting for apologies, not waiting for excuses. My chest felt lighter than it had in years. They thought a cruel gift would break me. Instead, it woke me up. Respect is not optional. Love without respect is exploitation dressed up as family. I used to think being a good mother meant giving until I disappeared. But now I know. When you vanish for others, they forget you were ever there. The cruelest gift I ever received was not the rubber gloves or the cleaner. It was the realization that I had allowed myself to be erased. But I also learned something else. Dignity can be reclaimed. Even if it's late. Even if it shocks the very people who took you for granted. So I leave you with this. If your family handed you a humiliating gift on Mother's Day, would you swallow the laughter? Or would you finally speak your truth? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been mocked for the love you gave, then subscribe, share this, and stay with me. There are more stories coming. Stories of women like us who refuse to stay silent any longer.